All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I know we are up against Deb's 27 years at Cali in the other room, so um, it is perfectly reasonable if you're over there. Um, what we're going to do today is, oh, not saying I'm watching my active. Yes, this is as far as I can go. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a tool that we built at the lab that I've been playing with a good deal over the last several months. It is a tool that some of its functionality has been eclipsed by new commercial developments in access to LLMs, but it is a tool that I still think has a lot of value and that I'm going to be using next year in my classes, and that I hope you might be able to find some use for at your institutions. That being said, I would love it if everyone who had the ability to was able to use this. And so this is a browser extension. It's available both for Chrome and Firefox. If you go to this bit.ly link here, you will actually come to this slideshow. I'm going to warn you now, the slideshow is you will be able to edit the slideshow. That's quasi-intentional. Well, it's not quasi, it's intentional. So please don't edit it now. I don't want to get down to the next slide and find something really. Please don't edit it now. Power, responsibility, trust. Okay, there we go. So this link will bring you to this. That's going to be useful because later on in the presentation, there's going to be a very long string that I'm going to want you to copy. So you're going to want to copy that out of there. And then depending upon where we go today, I might ask you to put some stuff in there, which is why you have the ability to edit. Okay. I suppose I should introduce myself. My name is David Colarusso. I co-direct the Legal Innovation and Technology Lab at Suffolk Law School. And today we're going to, like I said, look at a browser extension that does it sort of was designed to do one, I think, big thing, which is to actually play around with large language models in a way that is really close to the way programmers would play with them, and really take seriously the notion of what if prompt engineering was really a thing we wanted to teach students. And as I said, some of that's been eclipsed by some of the tools that are now available. There are things now that custom GPTs are available for free users to access. Some of the use cases for this are not quite as necessary, but we're going to sort of talk through all the things that we can do. That being said, it's always hard to figure out exactly where we want to go. If you're looking at the slide deck, you'll realize there are a lot of slides there, and surprise, surprise, there's some math involved in them. But I don't actually intend to use most of those slides. They are there sort of as a choose your own adventure for this room. So what I'd like to do is sort of level set and first see where we're all at. And if we need to do some background, we'll do some background. And we'll just sort of pick up where we think most of us are. Then we'll talk a little bit about things. We'll make sure you can install this extension. Then we're going to build some stuff. The three things we might build: you might build your own AI word processor or your own AI simulation. And that simulation might either be of some event out in the real world, like a client counseling, or it might be directed as to some other type of assistant. So someone that might be helping you do a task. And so those are just like the three things that you might end up building. And the nice thing is that you would actually be able to use this extension to produce an HTML file that you can just have, and that as long as you have an API key, you'll be able to run that thing anywhere that you can access the internet. And we'll talk about what we mean by the API key and all that stuff, and how you may or may not have it and whatnot. So that was a long-winded way. I was wasting time while everyone got to this. So was everyone able to get to this slide deck? Okay, great. So I have a set of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to put their hands up if they can answer in the affirmative. And when you can't answer in the affirmative, then you'll put your hands down. That'll help us figure out where we're going to jump in. So how many folks know what large language models are? Hey, good. That was what I hoped. No, hands are still up. Hands are still up. How many people have engaged would consider themselves to have engaged in prompt engineering? Okay. So, okay. I guess the first question would have been, how many people know what a prompt is for an LLM? Okay, good. Okay. Prompt engineering, a couple of people drop off. What about curriculum design or other sort of developing exercises for classes? Okay. And then how many folks, and this might shoot some people back up, how many folks have laptops? Okay, good. I'm going to assume that the people online, and thank you, you can put your hands down now. I'm going to assume that people online are at a computer. You're at a computer of some type. It may or may not be one with a larger screen than a phone. If you're on a phone, you may have to come back and watch this video to follow along. But otherwise, please do. All right. Well, that being said, then let's just sort of jump through a couple things. First, let's actually go ahead and let's install, because there's always troubleshooting issues. Let's go ahead and install this extension. If you go to this long URL here, sadly not havingdinosaur.com/post50/days/ if you're on here on this page, that's just a link. So you can click on it, which you all should do. And that will bring us to this project I've been working on. I did a while back called 50 Days of Lit Prompts. And so Lit Prompts is the name I gave to this extension. And LIT stands for Legal Innovation and Technology Lab, among other things. Yes, we were aware of the name when we named the double meaning of the name when we named the lab. We thought it would be lit. It will become more and more dated. This is going to be the great thing, just to see over the years how that joke plays with students from year to year. So if you get here on the 50 Days of Lit Prompts, second paragraph there, you'll see a link either to the Firefox or to the Chrome browser extension. And you should just be able to, I'll click over to the actual website here, click over and it will take you to something that looks like this. I've already installed it here on this computer. The Firefox one looks very similar. There'll be a button. It'll ask if you want to install it, and then it will ask if you want to grant it permissions to be able to read everything on your browser and blah, 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 blah. And that's, I'm going to tell you, yes, you want that. Maybe you don't want that. I'm going to tell you that's the decision you have to make if you want that for us going on here. It does not share any of the information back with us, aside from the information that Google and Firefox share on the fact that you downloaded it and use it. When we get to the point of using an LLM, though, that will share information. I'll talk more about that when we get that. It won't share it with me, but it'll share it with the LLM. All right. Let me just show you, let me give you a little tease of what this is going to be able to do. Once you have this browser extension, you can go ahead and you can pin it to your browser. And what you're going to be able to do is these are some preloaded templates that exist in there. And the thing that this browser extension does is it allows you to create templatized prompts. We all know what a prompt is, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Templatized prompts that are able to access the information in your browser. And then here's the really interesting part. Not only are there templates, but you can take the output of one of those templates and you can pass it on to another template. And you can continue to do that. And you actually can do that in some dynamic ways. And so what that means is eventually you can string them together to create rather robust workflows around a prompt. Let me show you just a simple one right off the bat. Here's like the first example. And it says, summarize and question this page. So I just went to the first article on the New York Times website. And so apparently today there was an opinion that came out in the bump stock case. And so here's a summary of that New York Times page. Let's see if it says, it actually does it tell us there. Maybe it actually said in the summary, but I'll just go ahead and ask the question. Okay, it doesn't actually say that in there. We could check the article and see if that was actually the case. But what you're realizing here is that we've accessed information in the browser, which is the web page you're on, and we've somehow done something with that where we're interacting with an LLM. And we'll all get to see what that looks like in a minute. That's sort of one example So we've created a prompt in the background that basically says, hey, here's the text of the web page. Summarize that for me, and then let me ask you questions about it. If I ask you a question about something that's not in the article, as you can see, don't tell me you don't know, right? So I specified that it didn't know about something. It works better sometimes than other times, but this is a good tool for exploring. And the motivation here is that either you can use it to create these workflows and to export them in a way that then your students would just interact with the end product, or you can actually teach your students something about prompting through using this tool. I'll show you just another example of something that you could do with it, wrapped up a little in a little nicer wrapping. I just got to do this. One of the things you'll see here on this page is a whole bunch of different examples of things. I'm just going to jump you to one to sort of give you an idea. Here's something I call the library of unwritten books. And this is a rather complicated interaction, but all this interaction you can create in the extension. In fact, this web page is an export of something I made in the extension and then just change the style around a little. To give you an idea what this is, I like to think of it sort of as a zeitgeist explorer. And you write a story. So I can answer a couple of pre-scripted questions. And I'll say, I don't know, Mars. I'll say 3075. David. Asking me if anything I want to know about my character special, I'll say no. Anything I want to know about the story, I'll say no. And then what it's going to do is it's going to, all of that questioning was something handled by what the extension could build. It's then going to give me the start of a story, and then it's going to ask me what to do. And then what this actually does on the back is it says, okay, based upon what I know about the story, and it's a sci-fi, it's this or that, how likely do I think that what it is I want to do is going to happen? And then for any of those of you who are familiar with sort of tabletop role-playing games, it basically does an ability check. So what it says, how likely is, if I say I want to, flap my wings and fly up into the air, if I said it was, realistic fiction, that's going to be very unlikely. And it basically says, how hard is this? And it will then roll a virtual dice in the background. And if your dice roll is high enough, it'll then say, okay, well, you succeed. And then it will write the next beat of the story that says, oh, you succeeded. I'll write a little bit how that is. Or you failed. I'll write a little bit about that is. And you can build out a whole story here. My son loves this. It's really good at fan fiction. The Pokemon stories he has written about this, he just loves it. And then there's a whatever Pokemon, and it battles with this. And it's loads of fun. A good use case for students in this one is something we'll see in a bit, which is sort of like client practice exercises. So I have a simulation, which is, it's a bail hearing. You're going to talk to your client. They're in lockup. You need to get information so you can make your bail argument. So have that exchange with someone and see how well you do on that. So I just want to sort of motivate for you some of the things we're going to be able to do. So either complicated stuff like this or very simple stuff like the summary. All right. If that sounds like fun, now we're ready to start cooking. So what I'd like everyone to do now is, I hope that was enough time for people to install the extension. So how many people have not installed this extension but would like to install the extension? Let's do it that way, because then we can troubleshoot for them. All right. How are you? Could you get to the Sadly Not Havoc Dinosaur page? Oh, did we? Let's back up, because maybe people came in before. All right. If you go to bit.ly/CaliCon everything. Oh, did I mistype something? I'm guessing the typo. Yeah? Oh yeah, this one's not a, well, you wouldn't be clicking on it. You would, you want to just write that in, bit.ly, and that'll get you to this page. Then once you're there, I can see a lot of people are there. This one, you can either click on it and go, or copy and go. And if you're curious, sadly not Havoc Dinosaurs, what happens when you're in college and you put your full name through an anagram generator, and then you just have to have the URL. All right, so we want to get here. We want to make sure you either get Chrome or Firefox, and then you install, and then you'll get this little fella up in the corner. So I'm going to help just a second here. Anyone else need help? Maybe if you're next to someone who has it working?
So the capital letters made a difference.
Oh, the case sensitive. Okay, case sensitive as well. See, we're learning things. Yeah, that's what we're going to go. That's what we're going to go over now.
Oh.
Yep, you want to just say yeah, the add, and then say add extension.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
We're just
All right. Oh yeah. If you're at the API key, you're ahead of the game. All I want you to do now is we just want to make sure everyone has the extension. And I guess I should ask online, is anyone having an issue? If you do, drop a question. You're not to the point where anything should work yet, other than you have the extension. In fact, if you try to use the extension, it should yell at you and say, no, that won't work. It worked for me because I already installed the API key. I jumped in. It's like the, Julia Childs. I had this one in the oven, and here it is. But now what we want to do, and this is where, if you look down in the slideshow, if we continue along on the slideshow, and you go up to your extension, if you then go down, you click on it, you'll get this thing here. If you click on any of these, all but one of them are going to yell at you. I'm sorry, all but two of them will yell at you, actually. This first one won't yell at you, and this one that says no LLM, that won't yell at you. All these other ones are going to have to access a large language model. To do that, you're going to need to hit the templates and settings button right there with that nice big arrow. And that's going to bring you to a page like this. And you're going to scroll down just a little bit, and you're going to find two empty text fields here. This text field, you want to fill in with this text here. This is the Open AI API endpoint. And so what this is going to do, just so you can have a full understanding of what's going to happen, is that this is going to allow the extension now to be able to query OpenAI's models to get results from their LLM. So when you click on a button in here, it will send whatever you have in your prompt. It will send it to their servers, and they'll come back with the completed output. So in order to do that, you need to give it the endpoint, which is this here, and this long string, which you can find on this slide. So if you follow down to the slides, you'll get here, and then you should just be able to copy and paste this whole thing. Make sure you get the SK dash in the front. Copy and paste this whole thing into this page that you've now had come up. And I'll wait a second. You can help the person next to you. You can flag me down, and I'll help you with that. As long as you have the extension installed and you have the slideshow, you have all you need. All right. So now, just make it so it's easy to see it. This guy. We're going to do templates and settings. And then go here. Why don't we go over here? I'm sorry. Where's the? Do you have the? You have the slideshow up? Where's the slideshow? Oh, it's probably for this. Let's do the. Oh, because I saw that right. Helps if I actually spell things. I guess. Sure. All right. There we go. Then this is why I asked for the hour. I preloaded us with $100 for today, so. Well, if there's leftover, I'm going to use it for other things, but. I just want you not to feel bad. We'll be able to do some stuff. But you know, don't try to. Oh. And is there anyone else after this? Is everyone else getting to the point where they're?
A question online saying, how do we get to the document on the screen?
That is the bit.ly, the original. So let me. That address there. And you're working. All right. Actually, if it's possible for you, Sarah, if you could copy that link, and do they see a chat, or there's a chat answer to the questions, right? Yeah, the bit.ly, yeah. All right, people just can get to that. Once we have this, it's going to be magic. All right, Sarah, when you've got that, just let me know. All right. And now we've gotten to the point, we've put those in there. Now we're going to test to see if things work. We've put in the endpoint. Do not add a slash to the end. It should be without the slash. So API.openAI. One chat completions. And then this, you copied and pasted that in. Now you should be able to go to your extension and just go ahead and click on the coin flip to poem workflow. And if everything's set up, you'll get a little poem. So here we got tails up, fortune falls away, a bittersweet end to the game we play. Not horrible. It told me that the tails is facing up. All right, so now I'm going to pause here just a second. And I want to make sure that everyone's got to the point now where they now have an extension with the API key in. And if you click on the coin flip to poem, you get some answer that's not an error. Right? So if you had any of those things wrong, or you were sort of off on your entry, let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to add that slash I told you not to have. If that was not right, and I tried to do this, it would say there was an error. Okay, so it's really particular. As I like to joke with my students, computers are like the most picky law review editor ever. If you're off by one character, they just refuse to do anything, except yell. All right, so now I'll ask a variation on that other question. Is there anyone who is trying to get the extension to work for whom it is not working? Okay, we got one here. And to what extent do you get? You got here. And I don't want to go. You have the extension downloaded yet? Is this cool? I imagine. Goodness. And if you've gotten to the point where you have it working, play around with some of the other options. See it. And if you can just copy over. Now, here's where I should say, if you have your own API key with OpenAI, you can use it. Another nice thing is that this is set up actually to work with any LLM that uses the OpenAI format for their API. So there's actually a link you'll find on that in the documentation there. If you read up above, there's actually a link there to a open source. Well, the product's not open source, but allows you to open source access open source LLMs. So if you want to use Llama or one of the other sort of open models, I'm not sure I'd call them open source, but open models, you can actually download something called LM Studio, and you can access that LLM from your computer. So if you want to run a local LLM without sending any information to OpenAI, you can do that. And this looks like looks good. What happens if you click on coin flip to poem? Try coin flip to poem. That's the easiest one. Where is it here? Okay, let's just look. Oh, I can see you missed the first part. There's like an SK dash. So if you just go back over to the, I think it might just be the SK dash. Let's try that, but if not, you know, recopy it. Yeah, okay. Now I think we've got it. Okay, that was the hardest stuff. Now that we've done that, now we're cooking with gas, which apparently was a bit of propaganda from the gas industry trying to get you to buy gas stoves. Okay. All right. Now, that really was the hardest part. And that really is why I asked for so much time, because now we're all together. And now you can start to do some amazing things. Let's see what's really going on. I'm going to scroll down here. And so everyone said they knew what LLMs were. Everyone said they knew what prompts were. Not everyone was clear on what the idea of prompt engineering was. So prompt engineering is just the name that people started to give the notion of building prompts that get you the responses you want. So an LLM, in general, it's a sentence completion machine. You have some set of words, and you let it go, and then it completes the next set of words that it thinks are the most likely set of words given its training data. And if the context is such that it looks like it's a conversation, it's going to act like a chatbot. If the conversation is something else, it's going to act in some other way. And so prompt engineering is just how you construct a prompt to get the answers you want. A lot of people think that prompt engineering won't really exist as something in very short order because everyone's going to be building these systems that will anticipate what the prompt really was and sort of make it for you on the back end. Anyone who, I think Jonathan was talking a little bit about this, right, standing right here just earlier today, where on the back end you're asking a question and then it adds things like, you know, answer in plain language, et cetera, et cetera. It's adding those to the prompt. In fact, retrieval augmented generation, which we talked about as well, is just creating a giant prompt and then using that to say, well, complete the sentence now based upon this text, not just the maybe question someone asked. And so what you can see here is this first real prompt. This prompt here was just our quick start advice. I'll just delete that. Our first prompt here, and I'm just going to get rid of the comments here. This is the one we just ran together. He said it has this weird squiggly inner text thing, squiggly, and it says provide a short 150-word summary of the above text. If asked any follow-up questions, use the above text and only that text to answer them. If you can't find an answer, politely decline to answer, but you can finish your thought if asked to. Keep everything really short, basically. And so this is the template, the prompt template, which ends up getting sent to our LLM. And this part here, this is a variable. You can find a list of all those variables up here in the bit above. So here, for example, it says variables from this page. And I can see I can get the number of selected words. I can get the highlighted text. I can get the number of words on the page, and I get the inner text of the page. That's just the text, not the HTML, but the text that's visible on the page. And so what I'm seeing here is this is basically saying take all the text on the page, put that at the front of my prompt, and then at the end of my prompt, add that text, and then send that off to your LLM. So it's as if you were on ChatGPT, you copied the page, you did like Control All, you know, and copied all the text on the page, pasted it into your chat, and then added that little bit at the end, and then hit send and get the result. So that's sort of what's going on here. You'll notice there are some fine tuning you can do below. You can tell it how you want it to behave. In this case, it defaults to sending it to an LLM. You don't have to send it to an LLM though. You can just output the text. Why might you want to do that? Well, let's look at a really quick example. There is a form letter. Let's give you a generic form letter. And I will leave the credentials that you have now. We'll leave them up until the money runs out. So after the session, you can keep playing with them. But here's an example of a prompt that doesn't use an LLM. You say it goes to prompt. And what this does basically is it has a bunch of placeholders. So here are things: day of the week, month, day, year. So you can sort of imagine what those are. Again, a list of those can be found in the link above. And then it has this interesting property, which is that if you give it something between these curly Q brackets that is not one of its predefined variables, so it's not inner text, it's not date, it's not this, it's not on that list that you can get to from the link, it will treat it like a question. So if I run this prompt, which is the generic form letter, you can see it asks, who is the letter addressed to? Well, that was the name of that curly Q bracket thing. So who's the letter addressed to? I'll say John. What is your name? I'll say David. And then it spits back out just a form letter that's filled in with those variables and then the answers I gave. So John and David. And that gives you an idea of how it's sort of stitching those things together. What you might start to be able to think about now is I can do something like this that's a form letter, use that to stitch together basically a bit of text. Here it's great. I can just use this. It's actually copied to my clipboard. I can now paste it in. If I just want to do form letters all day, I can use that. I don't need an LLM at all. But now I can imagine, what if I wanted to take that form letter, basically that form output, and then send that to an LLM? And that's what we're doing in all these other cases. We're basically sending them to an LLM. So let's revisit our first one. There's the model that I'm using. So in this case, it's using the 16K GPT 3.5. Temperature, that basically tells you how much you want it to sort of vary in its answer. If you say a low temperature goes between 0 and 1, a low temperature of 0 means just give me the most likely next words, like the most likely next words. If you increase it, it says, oh, it doesn't have to be the most likely, just give me, one of the most likely. And then by the time you get to 1, it's like, give me something that, is, 15 of the most likely or 20 of the most likely next words. Just choose one of those. And so the effect of that is that the higher the temperature, the more variation you'll get in your answers. I hesitate to call it creative because I'm not quite sure that's what's really going on, but that's sort of what it feels like often, is that higher temperature has more creative responses. Max token is just how big it can be. This JSON mode is something I don't think we'll get to today, but allows you to get structured output out. Here's a thing where you can say where you want the output to go to. You can have the output go to the screen, which would be inside the window here. A lot of these go to screen in the clipboard. And so that's because if I want to do, say, that form letter, shoots it back up, and then I can just paste it in my clipboard, and then I can just paste it into whatever I want. Other options, you can append it to a scratch pad. So there's actually a little thing called a scratch pad here. And that's just a place where you can put some text in your browser, and it'll just stay stored locally on your browser. And so you can just store some stuff there if you want to come back. And you can say hidden so that it doesn't go to the screen, maybe just to the clipboard, all those sort of things. And then the post-run behavior is, what do you want to do afterwards? So basically, you make your template, it builds a prompt, it sends it to your LLM responds, and then you can say, what do I want to do? Do I want to, as in this first example, continue with chat, which would then allow me to reference the stuff I had up above and have a dialogue with the LLM? Or I could do something like send it to one of the other templates. So to the extent that there are other templates, I could send it to one of those other templates. I'm not going to get into how that looks now, but like I said, this is all part of a blog series, 50 days blip prompts. If you go back to that main page, And you read through these, you'll get to a place where it will describe some of it for you. So here's what I want to do, because I think this would be really cool, is I want you to build something. And let me show you what that's going to mean. If I take what's in my prompts now, I can delete prompts, or I can remove things. I'm just going to delete them all. Okay, so now they're all gone, so I have nothing there. You can always restore defaults, so don't worry. But I can create a new template. And I can say, pirate poem, okay? Okay, it's the most unoriginal LLM usage ever. But now if I have this, I have pirate poem, or something that understands means pirate poem. And there we go. Yo, ho, 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 ho. Okay, I can take that now, and this is the fun, one of the fun parts. I can actually export that. And what this will do, password protect your key. If you leave it blank, there's no password. So I'm going to probably ask you to put a password because it's my key there. But now what this has done is this is saved an HTML file on the computer. If I open up that HTML file, I can now run that templatized prompt. What that means, it means if you want to, you can create, for example, I'll restore one of the faults. You could create some interaction. Actually, let's do this. Go to our 50 days. I'll just show you one that's already done. Here's a live demo of one. Here's the client counseling one I was talking about. So you had control over putting what text you wanted there, and then I can start the simulation. It says, are you my attorney? I can say yes. Can you tell me how to get out of here? Well, we have to explain to the judge why we'll come back. It's court date. And then you can have a conversation. This client's a very helpful client. You could, in the description for this, actually, let me show you what that prompt looks like. It basically has a little scenario. It says, you are an actor playing a role in the scene. These are the things that happens. Here's your background. This is the background information you're trying to get out as the student about their work and their family situation. And then you give it some direction. And that's the prompt, right? So if I took this and I put it into a new prompt here, now I have that same interaction in my browser section. The point is, you can start to get really creative about what you're going to do. And one of the things you could do is you could say, well, not only can you export it so that it's just that interaction, you can export it so that it engages that scratch pad that I mentioned. So let me show you what that looks like. Here's an example of one. Here's an AI word processor. Again, this is just an HTML file that points to an LLM. So you could take this and you could pass it around, you could save it. And as long as someone has an API key, they'll be able to access it. So here I have a whole bunch of things. You can get really interesting. You can do things like have a devil's advocate question your arguments. So you can have a dialogue back and forth. It's like, well, that's great, but what about, you can ask it to look for logical fallacies in what it was you wrote. You can ask it, if you were a reader of this text, what are the questions you would still have after reading this? You can apply to House Style Guide. That one's interesting. It actually takes the entire text of elements of style and says, here's elements of style. Here's the text someone's looking on. Use elements of style to tell me some things I should do to that. You can summarize things, do some other stuff. You can shorten text. You can translate it into plain language. You'll realize none of the things I said there was like write the essay for me. These are all ways of engaging with the models in a way to sort of make things more interesting. So here's what I'm going to do. I want folks to find the person next to you. If you're online, I know you have to work by yourself. I want to take 10 minutes. And what I want you to do is to read through this 50 days of lit prompts and find one of these ones you like. Find something that's interesting to you. And then I want you to try to replicate that in your extension. Now, if you want to replicate it exactly, that's pretty easy. All of these posts just have the prompt. You can just copy and paste it. But if you want to change it, you can change it around. And really, my hope is that what happens here, what we did here today was just get you over the hump of downloading extension and that you now can play with it. And like I said, we'll leave the API there with its money on it so you can keep playing probably for the next couple of days while the money lasts. And hopefully it'll give you some good ideas. There's a lot of context here. Let's come back then at 10 before and right before the close, and then let's see what people have made. And then we can have a discussion, and we'll try to do a quick discussion about how we might incorporate that, some of the stuff here into our work. That time went a lot faster than I thought it was going to. I thought we'd have more time to build. Questions? I want to hear you talking to the person next to you. That's how I'll know things are working out nicely. So go to that place where you found the links for the Firefox or Chrome. Read through some of the examples. I'll flag the anger translator. That's a lot of fun. Read through, see if there's something you can recreate. Tin till. Okay. So if you click through, any of these will have example text down below. And I'll circulate around if people have questions. If people have questions online, you can ask there too, and I can respond back. And maybe, Sarah, if we can just pop that link in there too, that might. This one here, just so they can get to that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That goes to the 50 days of lit.
50 days of lit prompts, yeah. So go to 50 days of lit prompts, find something that strikes your fancy, try to replicate it. Feel free to change it too. So now is probably at the point, if you haven't chose one, you should just choose one. Throw a dart. Yeah. You roll a d20.
50, right?
Yeah, you do 50. I was going to say roll a couple, but. So for example, here's a challenge to you if you want a challenge. If you choose to say do the client counseling, edit the script and make the client maybe really scared. Or if you're doing, there's one in there that's actually Socratic dialogue. So have fun playing with things. And I'm leaving it to you to choose sort of your level of comfort and interest. So some of them, the ones near the top are going to be the more straightforward ones. As you go down further, they're going to get more complicated. So you're a good judge of your own comfort level. So choose something you're comfortable with. All right, so some of them are pretty straightforward, like translate the text that you highlight. You feel free to like jump in, look at something. If you're afraid, then go back and find something else. And as you can tell, I'm one of those people who's an anxious talker, so that the silence is hard for me not to fill. But I do want to hear you talking to the person next to you, so I know stuff's going on. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep.
What's the next?
Well, so if you look down here, it'll have the templates. This one you've chosen has multiple ones. So you've actually got to make this into a template and this into a template. So the instructions on how to do that, basically. I open some. So you're gonna need, two templates. And then you can just copy the first one over, copy the second one over, and then you'll need to do the settings. And you'll need to, this is two templates, you need to name them because one of this one actually gets this pass-through data, comes from this one. So basically what happens is this thing happens first, then it sends that to the next one. And so obviously here, what you would do is you could take whatever article you want, finally cut and paste the text in there. And if you want some consulting, flag me down.
At this point.
All right. So let's do. You like to travel, so let's do. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all these. You can always restore defaults. Oh, I just deleted one. All right, so now we're empty. Now if we look over at, go to the, all right. So I know one of these ones is translate stuff. So let's see, we're going to go.
Court meeting I played half as the judge.
Oh, here's a universal translator. So this one, if you scroll down here, it tells us we can pull information that you've highlighted basically on the screen.
Sure.
And we can pass it through. And so there are actually two different, these two different bits are two different prompts, templates. So what we'll do is we'll create two prompt templates. And then we'll just copy these over. And I think that was the second one. So there, and then do the same thing with the first one. And then you'll see underneath them are the settings. Okay. And then you'll end up, you will have built something that in this case, you can highlight something. So, and then it will translate it into whatever you've told it to do here. I think it's probably asked me to translate it into English, but yeah. So translate it. So then once you build that, go to like Le Monde or something and and just highlight and click. Yes.
No, really, actually, I seem to hit the token bit. So
Oh,
is it
okay.
a matter of I can
That's
just
you-
refresh
Well,
or
it's because you have so much text. So one of the things is,
I asked it just the simplest way.
yeah. So what you might do, let me see exactly what it's saying. Let's go back to your template because you might be able actually to increase the token limit on your template.
Okay.
Which one are you doing?
Summarizing.
Oh, okay, so this is just what you've done is you've hit the limit on, you could try increasing, that's actually your output. You probably, was it on a really long page?
Was on an article about human rights and deep fakes.
Usually it's like really long Wikipedia pages that get it, but you could actually, you could just change, if you don't mind, you could just change the model. Thing is, the other models are more expensive. So you could try using 4.0. Should I just change that? Now if you go back to, where is it? Okay. Yeah, so now try it again, and it'll probably, remember, it's a commons. We're all using the same. All right. Now, some of you are hitting token limits. There are two places where that could be happening. One is in the output, which is that it wants to say more than it has space to say, in which case the little setting that says token limit, you can just make that bigger. The other one is on your input, which you might be trying to read something really big, in which case you would want to try a different model, because some of the models are, or try a different model or smaller input text. Yeah, yeah. Let me, okay, we're back, and I had a great question, which is a good segue in. So, okay, I've given you the question was something like this. I've gotten the free sample. I'm hooked. How do I keep using this? So, what you would want to do, and all these instructions are on this page or on the individual pages. So, if, for example, you click on any of these, there will be, the setup lit prompts here. This is the stuff we did together. One of the things, though, is it will tell you how you can get an API key from OpenAI, if you so wish. If you don't want to get a login from OpenAI, it will also tell you that you have the option in some alternatives, and there will be a link there to tell you about using LM Studio, which would be the local LLMs that you would run on your computer. There, your computer has to be sort of fast enough, and of course, the quality, the performance of different models will vary. But if you want to keep using this, you would have to find some LLM service that you're going to talk to, and it would have to use the OpenAI API syntax. Obviously, OpenAI does that, but LM Studio will let you run something on your own computer that will then let you download any of these open models or a number of these open models and then run it there locally. The nice thing about that, if you do that, you're not going to have to pay anyone anything. You just have to run it on your computer, and then it runs there. If you're going to use OpenAI, and this will walk you through, you have to have an account, and you pay them X number of cents per, X fraction of a cent per token. And that's all covered there. If you were to use this with students, there are two ways you could do that. If you either have them download LM Studio and do stuff locally on their computer, it gets a little technical. You could do what we did, even just sharing an API key. That can get a little technical too. If you use the export feature that I showed you very briefly, it will actually encrypt and include the API key with that HTML file that you can share. So you could share that with people and then give them the password, and then they could use it. But they would be using the API key that you had attached when you did the export. So the nice thing is that OpenAI has now made it so that you can create projects with API keys that you can then tie to a budget. So you could say, make an API key for whatever class, and we're going to spend $20, and then you could just share that, and then when it hits $20, it'll just stop. $20 actually will get you a lot if you're not using the most recent model. So if you're using like 3.5 or something, that actually will go a pretty long way. It might get you through the semester, depending upon how many projects you're having people do. If you're getting to the newer models like 4.0, that will go away pretty quickly. So you want to be careful about which ones you choose. But you can control that by saying this API key only uses this much money. You can also, in the API keys, because if you were to share them with people, you are effectively giving them, it's like giving them your credit card as it relates to that API key. So they can spend up to that limit. They also could use on whatever model is associated with that API key. So you can say, only let this work on these models. And so there's some fine grain you can do there. But if you are sharing an API key, you're actually not allowed to share the API key. So I would say you're all part of a development system. You're all working together. So you're not supposed to share it outside your organization. So they would all be part of your organization. Or you use LM Studio. All right, what did people make? Did anyone make something they're really happy with?
Got an error, I ran it, but I wanted to.
Can I give you the mic? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
People online.
Oh.
Okay, I got a little ambitious, and I'm really into Dungeons and Dragons, so I wanted to make a battle sim, and so you got basically a castle, pick a bunch of rooms, string them together so that they're connected, and then start with one and go all the way through. Every time you get to a room, you should encounter a creature, describe how you encountered that creature, have a battle, define successes. You've got 30 hit points, because success will ding you by 10 hit points, so each one should
I love this.
3 interactions. But I got an error when I ran it, so
Did you start with this one as your
yeah,
model?
I started with that and copied a bunch of that stuff, and then I just started typing in the rest. So the output, it's called LLM Battle Sim. If you want to, and if it's available,
Yeah. So what you would have to do is you would have to share that. If we had more time, this is what I had. Why I was going to let people edit the yeah.
Oh wait, maybe it is
slides.
working. So it says difficulty medium, narrative, Stefan
Yeah.
enters a grand hall, the magic castle, the wall
So-
adorned with. It doesn't say what do you want to do, which I
Yeah.
think
My guess is
what
what you want to look to. This sort of just does like the individual ability check. To string them together, you're going to want to look more down at like the library of unwritten books.
Okay, so I went hard mode.
Examples.
But it does, yeah. So it did start, and it says I am in the magical castle with tapestries depicting legendary battles. As he walks through that hall, he hears faint rustling coming from one of the side of the rooms. Curiously, he cautiously approaches and finds himself face to face with a fearsome orc warrior. The orc raises his weapon and ready to attack.
So you can imagine how you might use that to run a simulation in your class, right? So instead of orcs, it's the prosecutor, and you're the defense attorney. You can tell I was a public defender, right? That's the side I went with. Although I did once officiate a wedding between a DA and a public defender, which was really fun because I got to make a joke about whose side did you come with, or the prosecutions or the defense, and so that it was divided between the groom and. But other things that people made, yeah.
I did something fun. I always wanted to talk to the cat, and I want the cat to respond back. So I made it an intelligent cat, and it can speak, but it still has all the mannerisms and attitudes of a cat.
I like it. So here's a use case that I actually use a lot for these sort of things is talking to things you couldn't normally talk to. But the thing I like to talk to are documents. So you have a large document. And actually, this is where some of the new developments have eclipsed this. Now you could use GPT, the custom GPT feature in OpenAI, and you could just upload a document and do this. But you could do this here, and you'll see a couple examples in there. Where you want to talk to some long document that you don't want to read through on your first pass. So I think of it like pre-reading. So when I was asked to look at some legislation, I took the legislation, uploaded it, and then I had a chat with the legislation. I'm like, summarize the legislation. And then I'd ask, well, what about this? What about that? And I had about a 45-minute conversation with the bill. And then I went back and I said, well, that led me around a lot of interesting questions I had. And then I went back and then I read the bill with in mind. They're like, well, let's see if it was right about what it said. In a couple places it fell down, and they were both in places because it wasn't the finalized bill. In the version I had uploaded, there had been some sections struck out, and it didn't notice the striking out. So it was saying, like, it was still asking, it still thought that the bill said this when it didn't say it anymore because it had been struck out. So, but basically I ran through it and I was like, okay. And then I had these, it's just like when you ask someone to think about the questions they want to know about before they read something. It then helped orient me to this bill so that when I went in, I had some idea of what to expect. And then I did eventually read the entire bill, but it was a much more, it was somehow a more enjoyable experience than just diving in because I had gone back and forth thinking about, as a sounding board, it had acted as a sounding board, help me think about, well, what about this? What about that? And then it tried to figure out other parts of the document where those might be valid. And then I was able to go through and myself and check that in the actual language. So a couple of just quick bits of advice. Remember, these LLMs and their outputs are always secondary sources. So do with them as you would a secondary source, which is you want to go back to the primary source like I did and actually read the bill. If you want something to summarize something, you got to make sure that they actually read the thing. So if you want it to summarize a bill, you got to give it the text of the bill to summarize. I think that you should have a lot more of, there are a lot of people who do, 5 words, give me 500, like write an essay for me about whatever. I think that's looking through the wrong end of the telescope, turn it around. You want to do a lot more. Here are 500 words, give me 5. So give me a summary, tell me, who the main parties are in this thing, that sort of stuff. And then remember that weaknesses are contextual for these tools. So I didn't spend much time at all talking much about these tools or about where they fall down, because I think we now all are starting to get a good feel for that. They make things up. They are very dependent on their training data. But there are cases where that's great. If you want to do a simulation, it doesn't matter if someone's if LLM's making stuff up. You want it to make things up. You want it to be playing a role. So turn those weaknesses into strengths. And then remember that the LLMs are a motor. They're not the motor car, right? So it's how are we going to build the chassis around it to turn it into something useful? So, if someone just showed up and said, here's a motor, it's not very useful to you. And I think that's sort of the stage we're at now, is here's the motor. Hopefully what this tool lets you do is imagine how you might connect it to things. And what I really like is having it in your browser. You can connect it and interact with the text in your browser. So you can highlight some text, translate, you can summarize a page. I find this has, you could revolutionize my social media usage. You can highlight some stuff. You can say, one of the good ones in here is there's an anger translator. So you can, highlight some social media exchange, and then you can tell it what you really think, and then it'll turn into a nice, oh, that's a very diplomatic response. There's a lot you could do. Really, I just wanted to whet your appetite, and now get your hands dirty. And so now, play around while you're waiting in the airport for your flight. Do some things, and if you're really interested, you can take the next step and either download LM Studio to run a local, or use OpenAI to do something. But all the resources, everything I've talked about is all there. Questions? I think we're at time, unfortunately. Anything online? I hope that this is one of those. This is going to be the slow burn. You're going to be like, what did I do? And you're going to be sitting in the airport and you're going to be like, I wonder. And then you're going to open up the laptop and you're going to do the thing and you're going to go, oh. So the slow burn, take it with you, spread the word, have fun, do random stuff.